I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
All right, y'all. I meant to do this live stream earlier, but based upon the YouTube and Twitter, um, YouTube and Twitter being down, uh, let me go ahead and decide to do this early this morning. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, so let me go ahead and, as you know, the Reverend Jesse Jackson has passed away Tuesday morning, and I did a live stream about it. Um, and right now, I'm gonna cover a little bit of his political positions of both his 1984 and 1988 presidential campaigns, and I'm going to do it because I see how some people, I see how cynical black social media is, right? The cynicalness, you know, um, the conspiracy theories, all of that, the lies, all that, right? And no, I'm not here to defend Reverend Jackson. I'm not. What I am here to defend is how y'all are so ready to burn somebody else at the stake, while the Charlie Kirks of the world, when they met their end, their misdeeds are cover up. They get to be um, put up on high. That's why I have a such disdain for black social media. I don't know what happened to black people in America, but when one of your own face the end, instead of y'all rallying the wagons, circling the wagons, and I'm gonna say it like this: I'm not the most pro-black, but I do know what black history is. I know the potential it can become. See, some of y'all become so toxic. All y'all doing is working for the other side. And I'm not the most. I myself is not the black man who will do the red, the red, black, and green. I'm not the person who waved at. I'm not the black man that will sit there and do the whole, you know, the Claude Anderson, uh, Francis Quells Wilson, who quote Francis Quells Wilson and who quote John Henry Clark. Uh, Now I know that sounds hypocritical because I just played John Henry Clark as an intro. You don't hear me quote any of these personalities or Amos Wilson. You'll never hear me quote any of these individuals. See, I'm my own man, but at the same time, I was born black. I know the black experience, but I'm gonna be damn. I'm gonna let y'all just come online talking about, oh, he deserved to burn in hell, and let him rest in piss. How some of you doing, Ricky Manor and talking about you, while Charlie Kirk could be put on a pedestal, and yet he have done nothing in this world but being a bootlicker for the powers that be in this country. Do you understand? Now, let me go ahead and back up real quick. What's going on, Femi? I appreciate you, Femi. So let me go ahead and put this up. And let me say shout out to Taz too, though, because Taz also did a live stream, and he was wondering about the whole YouTube being shut down for. Yeah, his YouTube part of his YouTube was being shut down as he was doing a live stream, because he was talking about it in the chat room. But anyway, let's go over here. Right, this is his 1988 logo. But anyway, let's get back over here. Right now, I'm gonna talk about my positions compared to his, because there's some things I do agree with. Right. And this is not going to be a very long live stream, of course, because I got things something to do tomorrow morning, later this morning when the sun comes up. I got something to do, which I really don't want to do. But anyway, let me talk about this. Right. Here is, and I don't like doing Wikipedia, but it lists down what his priorities, his political platform is. And I'm gonna tell you what I agree and what I don't agree with. All right. He ran on a platform include create a work progress administration style. Oh, excuse me. Create a works progress administration style program to rebuild American infrastructure and provide jobs to all Americans. See, now I heavily agree with this, right? Um, the Works Progress Administration was a FDR New Deal program that ended after I want to say ended after World War II, or ended during World War II. And the Hoover Dam, things like the Hoover Dam, things like the Tennessee Valley, the electrical grid, all of that was financed and created by the Works Progress Administration, or back then it was called the Public Works Program. And I think though on that, right? I think on that, um, I think something like this would stop a lot of these surplus males. All right, it would give the surplus males something to do rather than being on YouTube and social media, following the Fresh and Fits and the Andrew Tates of the world, saying that they're manosphere and red pill, while being um going into being a nuisance to other people, like how they're joining ICE, like how some of them incels are joining ICE and being more belligerent, right? Yeah, I'm going there. Yeah, I'm being anti red pill with this. So let me go to the second one. And speaking about infrastructure, you know what? I'm talking about the infrastructure later. I'm gonna revisit that because it's connected to something else at the bottom, right? Reprioritize, Reprioritizing the war on drugs to focus less on mandatory minimal sentences for drug users, which he views as racially biased. Now, some of y'all want to talk about the crime bill, right? The 1994 crime bill. And when it was being debated in the halls of Congress, Reverend Jackson was butting heads with some in the Democratic Party and the congressional Republicans, because the because they snuck in. See, some of y'all really need to understand about the crime bill of 994. Um, the crime bill of 94 was a rider bill, and Joe Biden at the time, when he was a senator, was had a bill called it was a bill that was about domestic violence, right? Um, Something about the Delu model. The whole Delu model came up. He was trying to nationalize the Delu model concept, where believe all women, when that's more female centric esque when it comes to domestic violence. And the crime bill was snuck in that bill. So the idea of blaming uh, Joe Biden is also a misnomer, and is also disingenuous, because if a person write an original bill and then you snuck that bill into somebody else's bill and it passed, you act like Joe Biden created the crime bill, when that crime bill was created by the black clergy who witnessed the um, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago had the drug wars between the gangs and all of that. So you can't just fault Joe Biden. However, right? Jesse Jackson back then, Reverend Jesse Jackson, uh, was protesting against the passage of this bill because he read the entire bill, and while he supported the the bigger bill, the larger portion of the bill, the one part of the bill which was the hate crimes bill, he was vehemently against. Anyway, let me just move on to the third point, right? Um, yeah. Well, anyway, let me finish the second point. And um, what you saw is racially based and more on harsher punishments for uh money laundering bankers and others who are part of the supply end of the uh supply and demand. Yes, going after the bankers who finance um the drugs that are coming into from coming into the country. See, a lot of these drugs, illegal drugs, are not coming in, you know, are being financed. It has to take a bank to finance the delivery, the shipment, the communications, all of that. See, that part is not even focused upon within even today. It's not focused upon, which lets you know that this system is is actually corrupt. Let me go to the third part. Um, Reversing Reaganomics inspired tax cuts for the richest 10% of Americans, using the money to finance social welfare programs. Yeah, Reaganomics destroyed the Department of Education, which why you see a lot of young men. See, going back to the red pill, my anti red pill rhetoric. Um, a lot of young men um, was not being educated correctly when Reagan destroyed or deflamed the Department of Education, the Department of Health and Human Resources. And this is still to this day, right? Sadly, to this day, um, housing, all of that, right? Um, Reaganomics had actually defamed uh, much of your um, programs that would actually help low end of Americans. Here's one thing I superly agree with. Cutting the budget of the Department of Defense as much as 15% over the course of his administration. Yes, yes. This is one thing I do agree with, right? I do agree with cutting 15% of the Department of Defense. Why do you need military bases in Africa? Why you need military bases in the Middle East? Why you need military bases in areas where you are not wanted or needed? And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think the only countries that we should be worried about is the countries that who have treaties with us, who has alliances with us. Why we up in Mali? Why we up in Sudan? Why up in Syria when Syria is no friend of the United States? We didn't ask them. They didn't ask us to come over here, to come over there. We just sit there, and set up shop in middle of their own desert land, and you know, so no. But anyways, that's where I agree with. And even our weapon systems should be prioritized for farming and everything else. The parent declaring apartheid era South Africa be a rogue nation. Well, that's already dealt with. That's already dealt with. But let me get back over there, right? When it comes to South Africa, right? In order to address South Africa, uh, today I'm talking about in the terms of today, in terms of the post Mandela South Africa. I think in order to have in order to bridge the differences between the races of individuals in that country, um, and ensure generational wealth, instead of doing the taking of white land uh, to for compensate for colonization, I believe it would be wiser to tax the white farmers and redistribute the land. No, redistribute um, the income to the black population that was kept out of the land and so forth. But that's just me. I mean, you just can't just the idea of a government just taking land that's been you know um, and give it to somebody else. Uh, Even though I agree with the principle of compensating land, the application is messy. Um, is too uh, volatile. I would my course would be you tax the white farmers that the money will go back to the black population and let the black population uh, feed off of it. Okay, the way I see it is right. Let them work the land so you can get paid for it without you. Um, but you know what? That's for a different thing. That's it sounds very controversial, but I think that they're a better alternative than what is being proposed in South Africa. But anyway, um, instituting an immediate nuclear freeze. Um, I somewhat agree, but also disagree with dismantling nuclear weapons. I think that because we are the first country um, that have used nuclear weapons in anger, I don't think it's um, and because there's this fear that it could be used at any time or any place. It depends on who is the president, right? Um, I think we need to keep it because we first used it. I don't think we should just dismantle all our nuclear weapons because of you know because because of that fear um, from other countries um, outside of the Western Hemisphere. Um, they might be more prone to. Um, I'll just say it's just a safeguard. I'll put it like that. But anyway, that's a now. Here's where I want to talk about, right? Giving reparations of descendants of black slaves. Um, when it comes to reparations, I agree with the principle. And some people talk about cutting the check, right? I'm of the I'm of the school of thought of creating an infrastructure bank. Going back to my first part, right? Because I did a video series. Um, hold on, let me check the chat room. I'm just talking real quick. I'm just talking. Okay, ain't nobody in the chat room. Anyway, um, talk about reparations. I'm of the school of thought of creating a instead of reparations, like as in we collect the names and we just cut the check for the purpose of cutting the check. I'm of the school of thought of creating an infrastructure bank, a Freeman's um, infrastructure bank, and I did a video on this last year, and I did another video of this prior. Think around like 5 6 years ago. I did another video series, another video talking about it. An infrastructure bank idea is in it, and let me put it in a short form. Uh, is where the infrastructure bank is created. The names of all of the names that are on the Freeman's Bureau. You check out who are the descendants. Then you put a $500 billion fund that would, you know, seek out and deliver that same money to, to those descendants. The second thing, you take another 500 billion into this bank where it'll address things like reinvestment into um, the black um, areas in the United States. Also, it would create is a public private institution where people could borrow money and then the interest go back to every descendant of slaves at the end of the year. Let's say for all intents and purposes, right? The city of Detroit or this small town in Kentucky or this hamlet out there in eastern um, Oregon, right? If they needed if they need a loan and they loan the money to us from this infrastructure bank, every proceed that when they repay the money, the interest will we come back we pay back to the descendants of slaves after they paid everything back. And another thing on this bank that I like, in this infrastructure bank, also there's some things I like to fund the baby bond. Um, and when it comes to international trade, even I would allow African countries to uh lend money, no, borrow money from this infrastructure bank outside of the um IMF, the International Monetary Fund, outside of the World Bank, because I believe the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, those are arms of white European power structures to uh, hamstrung African nations. And if they would borrow money from our Freeman's Bank, less likely um, they'll need the World Bank and the IMF to corrupt their own financial systems and trade systems. You know, and anytime they borrow money from us, well, guess what? All the gold, silver, and natural resources paid back in interest would come back to us. Well, go back to the fund, and then for every black man, woman, child who are descendants of slaves, or should I say, anybody who is a descendant of American black slaves, should be paid back, even across the international boundaries. And also, you know what? That's a whole other thing. On a side note on that issue, the idea is to uh, what is create a transatlantic uh, economic zone where um, African countries can send African and Caribbean countries can send their raw materials to us while we send our technicians, our black firms, black institutions, African American led institutions, even our own HCBUs, and put branches in there, uh, so a trade of technicians and raw materials can go across the Atlantic. Uh, that's my idea of this Freeman's infrastructure bank idea. So yeah, I'll use that as an alternative to reparations for us. We get paid. But anyway, let me get back to uh, that's one idea I love. I would like to venture upon. What's going on? Oh yeah, you back on YouTube? Yeah, yeah. YouTube's finally working again. Um, and my infrastructure. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I gotta go off of my infrastructure bank though, because that's my baby. I'm sorry. That's one idea. That's my baby. I like to see that. You know, any country that has a large black diaspora, um, a large African diaspora population, I think it should work where every black person outside of the Caribbean, outside Africa, should be fed to that generational wealth, um, and using our talents and know-how to do international uh, trade and gaining resources on both sides of the Atlantic. Uh, so anyway, that's what I'm on. But anyway, let me continue on, because I'll talk about that all day. I'll talk that idea all day. But anyway, I have done a video series on that last year. You know, I'll put that in the description box later on, because that's something that I find I'm very passionate about. But anyway, let me get back to where I was at. Um, supporting family farmers by reviving many of Roosevelt's New Deal farm programs. Um, he's right because the family farms has been decimated. If y'all ever think about this, right? Food is going up. The price of food is going up. Um, beef, chicken, especially if you're eating chicken wings, beef, chicken, pork, mutton, or even your vegetables are all going up. And it's all going up because of the rise of the rise of tariffs. That's Donald Trump's fault. And also multinational corporations are buying up farmland, and and because of the greed, it shut out people out. And they're using cheap labor, i.e., um, illegal migrants. You got illegal migrants coming to this country, um, who are working at slave wages, picking our lettuce and everything else, while the family farm is being decimated. And plus, a lot of family farms, a lot of farmers and ranchers are facing depression. Um, most, if you go to anywhere, any farmer community, and like the same communities that I'm at, right? Depression is the main destroyer of American farms. The mental health crisis, because of the lack of pay, the lack of respect, the lack of mental health and health care to um, the farmer, because he's isolated. He's usually isolated by himself. He or she is isolated from the rest of the population. Because of the isolation, all that mental health and healthcare is lacking. And back then, during Roosevelt time period, farmers was getting assistance, and that actually ended in the 1970s under Richard Nixon at the time. So anyway, we keep on moving. Single payer healthcare system, universal healthcare. Um, I agree with universal healthcare. I used to be against um universal health care until myself got sick. I used to be against it until I got sick, and you got to spend thousands and dollars for medication. When I said $1,000, I'm not being I'm not being hyperbolic. Not being hyperbolic. Um, if you buy a medicine like, what's that medicine that you see on TV? Ozempic or Jardiance. Jardiance costs $700 a bottle without the insurance. Depending on the insurance, it's 700 plus dollars. 700 plus. And that's not even including the insurance. So if you need Jardiance, or if you need Ozempic, or if you need Maduro, or if you need, you know, some of these ads, some of these medications that you see on TV, it's more than $700. That's more than pay somebody's paycheck every 2 weeks for that one little bottle of 35 pills, 20, 20, 25, 35 pills, capsules. So yeah, I do believe in a universal health care uh, thing. I came around along with it. Let me see what else he also had. He talking about ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Equal Rights Amendment, I really don't care for it. It's, whatever. I'm not for or against it. I'm not, anyway. The next thing I'm going to talk about is increasing federal funding for low level public education, providing free college, community college. Listen, I'm for it. I'm for all that. You know why? Because our government is more about destroying people and destroying cities rather than building and maintaining communities at home. 15% of the military budget is there to destroy some other poor person's country, right? And if we take all that 15% of the military budget and reapply that in public in low level public education in uh, community colleges, you might have more families. You might have more home ownership and all that. So anyway, imply a stricter enforcement of Voting Rights Act. I agree with that. And the formation of a Palestinian state. I'm definitely for a Palestinian state. Yes, I am. I'm pretty much for it. Um. So yeah. Um. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I didn't look at the chat room. Yeah. George Goda said chicken wings and beef. Yeah, chicken beans and beef are expensive. Do like it's $17. I'm the where y'all are at. It's $17 for 2 pounds of beef, a ground chuck. $17 for 2 pounds of ground chuck. That's the cheapest meat to buy. You know, it's like you get a credit check to buy fresh meat. Yeah, you know what? Let me tell you something, George. I use my Robinhood, because I have a Robinhood account, right? I have a Robinhood account. I have to use my. I remember a couple weeks ago, I use the dividends because because some of the stock I have has dividends to it, right? I use the dividends on my Robinhood to enjoy wings for the Super Bowl. And that was like one of the few times I'll sit there and buy wings. People forgot that farming and ranching it's one of those dangerous jobs, even out rank the first responders. Well, I wouldn't say is farming itself is not as dangerous as it used to be. Well, you know what? Well, I have seen some people getting killed, um, being crushed doing hay. I remember that. I remember this is back in 1998. That because I don't want to speak on that. I don't want to speak on that. Uh, that's for a whole other story. I don't want to revisit that, but it's somewhat dangerous. As well, do you have to grill them and gas them or charcoal? I mean, if you want to do barbecue, I use charcoal. I don't use no gas. I use charcoal. It's cheap. You know. Uh, Sometimes so I use wood. If I have a grill, I mean, I have a barbecue pit. So I have a barbecue pit. So I use wood because I got a lot of dead limbs and dead trees. Why not just use the logs? So I don't use charcoal. I use charcoal as a starter base, and then I put the wood on top of it. You know, I use the charcoal as the bottom, but I put the wood on top of the charcoal. Yeah, right, 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 right. Um, Yeah, let me see where else I was at. Well, I would talk more about my reparations plan, my alternative to reparations. I think that's my baby project. I like to see happen. But um, yeah, for the most part, I agree with 80% of Jesse Jackson's Reverend Jackson's presidential um thing. And let me see, let me check out his 1984 platform. Let me check his 1984 platform. Where is it at? Where is it at? Where is it at? Um, I know he has. Oh yeah, here it is. Let me go to 84. Um, this is 1984 one, and it's basically the same. Yeah, it's basically the same um concept, right? It's basically the same concept. Um, it's pretty much the same as his 1988. Um, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So that's all I'm going to say for this video. Um, because I rather talk about policy. I ain't gonna talk about what I feel. I talk about policy because facts matter more than feelings. You know, everybody want to down somebody, you know, and want to bring up this stupid argument about, you know, the term African American and all that. No, let's talk about actual real policy. You know, but anyway, thank y'all for coming. This is a short live stream. I would have done it earlier if YouTube had not shut down. Would have done this last night, but hey, it's back up this morning. So uh, let me get out of here. And let me say this before I leave. Um, Donations is accepted, is appreciated, I should say. Donations is highly appreciated. So anyway, thank y'all for coming, and I'll see y'all next time. I'm out. By the way, I'm going to do a video on Gen Y. I'm going to do a video on the defense of Gen Y, and I'm going to do another video in defense of Don Lemon. And I'm going to try to work on these videos. It's been hectic, so I'm going to try that later on. But anyway, thank y'all for showing up, and I'll see you next time. Big J out. Y'all have a good one.
I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.